Active aero, semi-active suspension, a supercharged engine, well, these technologies are banned in the championship that the Mustang GT3 competes in. That's what this car is based on. And that begs the question, did Ford just build a better road car than their race car? What's it like? Buckle up, my friends. Let's go for a drive. I'm your host, Brian Makse, racer, lover of driving fast, fun things, and on this channel, you get reviews for drivers from drivers. Now, this GTD isn't just a fast Mustang. It's the answer to the question that most manufacturers don't have the courage to ask themselves, which is, what if we built a road car without the conventional constraints of modern motor racing? Thanks to our friend Jay Lasco at Lasco Ford, who graciously loaned me this Mustang GTD. Certainly didn't have to, and the funny thing is, he's put most of the miles on his GTD on the racetrack. And before we get into what this is like to drive, let's have a look at it in a little more depth. When it comes to understanding the technical specifications of this Mustang GTD, the first thing you need to know is that there has never been a Mustang like this. Yes, there's Mustang DNA here, but this is something very special. Unlike standard Mustangs built entirely at Flat Rock, the basic GTD body is assembled at Flat Rock and then transported to Multimatic in Markham, Ontario, outside of Toronto, for hand finishing, suspension installation, and final integration. And think of it this way, it's a similar process to what Ford and Multimatic did with the Ford GT supercar. It's a heavily modified S650 Mustang unibody with extensive aluminum and carbon fiber reinforcement with torsional rigidity that approaches GT3 race car levels, apparently. There's extensive carbon fiber bodywork, the hood, roof, fenders, deck lid, and doors, active aero front flaps, and the rear wing that is mounted directly to the C-pillar on this performance package car. The engine is a 5.2-liter supercharged V8, of course, but for the first time ever in a Mustang, this one uses a dry sump oiling system. It makes 815 horsepower at 7,000 RPM and 664 pounds of torque at 5,000 RPM. The Akrapovic titanium exhaust is standard. The transmission's an 8-speed dual-clutch transaxle supplied by Tremec. It is rear-wheel drive, of course, and power gets to the back through a carbon fiber drive shaft. There's an electronically controlled limited-slip diff. Steering is hydraulically assisted. Suspension is based on short, long-arm, double wishbones at the front. Multi-link rear suspension, but it's mounted inboard because it's a pushrod style suspension. The dampers are extremely trick. These are Multimatic adaptive DSSVs. What that really means to you is that these are spool valve dampers, not a traditional shim stack, and they are the adaptive type with a 15 millisecond response time. Plus, there are two separate ride heights, and in each setting, the suspension has its own distinct calibrations. Yes, indeed, in normal and in track modes, it's like having a distinct suspension for each of those settings. It's also worth mentioning that there are no conventional anti-roll bars here. The suspension geometry and active damping actually manage roll. Great news for track rats, Ford is now supplying GTD owners with camber shims that weren't included with early deliveries. The suspension leaves limited room for camber adjustment without them, meaning early track goers were stuck running near street alignment specs rather than aggressive settings you'd want for optimal tire contact. It's a small piece of metal that unlocks the car's actual capability, and it's cool that Ford has sorted this for customers. Brakes are 6-piston Brembo front calipers with carbon ceramic rotors. Those are 16.5 inches in diameter. 4-piston Brembo rear calipers with 15-inch carbon ceramic rotors. Wheels and tires are 20s. Forged aluminum wheels are standard. The forged magnesium optional wheels look like they're going to be a few months out at best. Tires are Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2Rs, measuring 325 wide at the front and 345 wide at the rear. Officially, curb weight is 4,343 pounds, and static weight distribution is actually 50-50 because of all the wonderful engineering and this powertrain configuration in the GTD. The interior is exactly what you'd expect from a very high-end, high-performance, track-oriented car. It's aggressively focused, it is very driver-centric, and it's not apologetic about any of it. The Recaro seats are deeply bolstered like you should expect in a supercar. Miko suede everywhere for your hands to touch, a rotary shifter because traditional shift levers waste space, and that suspension window behind the seats. You can literally watch $50,000 Multimatic dampers working in real time. It's either brilliant theater or functional art, depending on whether you think engineering should be seen. Most people will show it off once, then forget it exists, but it's there, proving that every dollar is still working. And for me with a Mustang GTD, I really dig that. I would be showing off those dampers all day long. Forward visibility is shockingly good for a track car. This is incredible. It must be a blast to drive on the track, but here on the open road, it's easy to see out of in this direction. In that direction through the rear view mirror, especially at city speeds, well, your view is blocked by that wing. Once you get going fast enough, well, the wing opens up and you can see just a little bit more. And in general, somehow you can actually see out of this thing, which is hilarious because most supercars in this price range have forward visibility measured in good luck. That rear wing is obviously there. You see it in the mirror like a permanent passenger, but it doesn't completely block that rear view. Ford could have designed this thing with tunnel vision and blamed aerodynamics. Instead, I think Ford remembered that most of their customers, like our friend Jay, are going to drive this more than just twice a year. And for those of you that say this looks and must drive like a Mustang, well, here's the deal. When you approach it, looks like a Mustang. Open the door, well, it feels like a Mustang. Close that door, also feels like a Mustang. But after that, well, the charade ends. This is very, very unique in terms of its driving experience. Truth of the matter is this chassis is exceptionally rigid, and that's what this car needs in order for the suspension to do its work. The steering wheel is this modern, fashionable one with the flat bottom bit here. I'm not necessarily a fan. I like round wheels, but what is cool here are these shift paddles. It's got paddle shifters that feel more substantial than most manufacturers' actual shifters. And here's what matters. The wheel rim diameter is perfect. Not too thick, not too thin, and designed exactly where your hands want to be at 9 and 3. Some cars get this wrong and you never stop noticing. The GTD gets it right and you forget to think about it at all, which is the highest compliment you can give an interface. And it just works like a good tool should. And yes, there's no rear seat, just cargo space in the suspension window. Ford deleted the second row entirely. Finally, an American manufacturer admits that +2 seating is a lie we've all been telling ourselves. And we've seen this rotary shifter in many Fords before, but this one is a little different. The rotary dial itself is made from titanium that comes from retired F-22 fighter jets. Yes, really, and think about it this way. The shifter in your Mustang GTD has a more interesting military service history than most members of Congress. With the seating position, I'd actually like to get the seat a little bit lower, but after spending the day in this GTD and appreciating the visibility, I'm kind of not complaining. Maybe if I take one on track, I'll have a different perspective, but right now, really can't complain. The like button actually tells YouTube to make sure that people who want to see this video actually get to see this. And if this video has given you more insight to a Mustang GTD than any press release, well, that's the entire ask. Some of you know that I am mechanically sympathetic, and Jay's Mustang GTD doesn't have more than 1,000 miles on it, and I really don't want to do a launch control start, so we're going to have to go with some published numbers. This does 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. It tops out at apparently 202 miles an hour, but that doesn't tell the whole story. 815 horsepower hits different when it comes from a supercharged V8, not a turbocharged one. There's no lag, no waiting, no disappointment. You pin the throttle and the entire powertrain responds like it's been personally offended by your request for restraint. The faint supercharger whine blends into the scream of the V8 that sounds like violence, which is appropriate because that's essentially what's happening. And that dry sump oiling system means you can hold this thing at any engine speed loaded through corners without starving the engine. Most Mustangs Mustangs can't do that. The GTD doesn't care what other Mustangs do. It does the GT3 race car's homework and adds extra credit for spite. I gotta say, this 8-speed dual clutch is brilliant. Shifts faster than I can think, and then causes the engine and exhaust to do amazing things, including making some fantastic sounds. In manual mode, it responds to paddle pulls like it was already planning to shift there. In automatic mode, it's predictive in a way that feels borderline telepathic. And the shift quality, well, there's no cushioning, no smoothness, just mechanical immediacy. Bang, next gear, bang, next gear. It's not harsh, it's efficient. Like the transmission knows you didn't buy this car to be comfortable. You bought it to go fast, so it's going to help you go fast without apology or explanation. All in all, this is what transmissions in this price bracket should feel like, and most don't. And we have to talk about where that gearbox is mounted, because as a transaxle, it does two very important things. First, it puts the mass right between the rear wheels for great weight distribution. Second, it makes the GTD feel fundamentally different from every other Mustang ever made. The back end didn't just follow the front, it's participating in the process. You turn in, and the rear responds with precision that doesn't exist in front-engine rear transmission layouts. The whole car rotates around you instead of pivoting around the nose. It's the difference between steering a car and conducting it. And once you really feel it, every other Mustang is going to feel nose-heavy by comparison. This engine is extremely refined. Power delivery is progressive enough to be manageable all the time, but then if you're not paying attention, it can be completely terrifying. There's no artificial throttle curve, no nanny mode that cuts power when it thinks you're being stupid. Ford assumes if you bought this, you know what you're doing, or at least you're willing to pay for the education. The question isn't whether it'll go sideways, the question is whether you'll be ready for it when it does. If you want to support the channel beyond just watching, well, the merch store is open, links here and in the description below. What that means is more time to produce cool episodes like this, and less time worrying about manufacturer blacklists. No pressure, small ask. Out of all of the amazing technology, the magic in the Mustang GTD is in the suspension. Traction control is adjustable in track mode. You can dial in how much intervention you want, but even in full nanny mode, this thing will rotate if you ask it to. And it's not subtle. On the street, it's compliant enough to survive normal roads without beating you up. Switch to track mode and it transforms, drops 40 millimeters, doubles the spring rate, and suddenly you're in a different car. One that corners flat, responds to weight transfer before you've finished making it, and stays composed over mid-corner bumps that would unsettle conventional dampers. This is the tech that GT3 Racing bans because it's too effective, and on real roads with real imperfections, it's genuinely transformative. And the best part, the GTD doesn't ride like a race car with plates. And in those two different modes, it rides like two very different cars. One for getting to the racetrack and one for when you arrive. Carbon ceramic brakes, they're massive. They're bigger than any carbon ceramics I think I've ever seen. They're also expensive. And they work with the authority that makes you forget you're in a 4,300-pound car. Initial bite is firm but not grabby. Modulation is excellent, and they keep working without fade or drama. You can brake deep into corners, trail brake to rotate the car, or stand on them from triple-digit speeds, and they respond like it's nothing. Most carbon ceramic brakes feel wooden until they're hot. These work cold, work hot, and work consistently between the two. And the pedal feel is firm enough that you know exactly what's happening at the contact patch. And these are exactly how brakes like this should feel in a car with this kind of performance envelope. Cohesiveness is where this Mustang GTD earns its price, starting with the control weights. Braking, steering are absolutely wonderfully matched, but it goes much deeper than that. And the thing is, they don't feel like separate systems. They feel like one integrated machine responding to your inputs with consistent weighting and feedback. You turn in and the front bites. You add throttle and the rear squats and hooks. You brake and the nose loads without diving. Everything happens in sequence, predictably, with the kind of flow that lets you build speed naturally instead of fighting the car. It's not perfect. There's still mass to manage and physics to respect, but it's cohesive in a way most cars at any price aren't. And each system knows exactly what the others are doing. And they're all working towards the same goal, and it's to make you faster, whether out on the open road or on the racetrack, and keep you on the asphalt. And another thing I gotta say, especially in track mode, this GTD corners exceptionally flat, and it should be a reference point to all other supercars. How do you spec yours? Well, I have some thoughts. What you are looking at is a 2025 Ford Mustang GTD, and our friends at Lasco Ford had this one finished in frozen white paint. It now has a wrap and a livery designed by my racing team's livery designer. Base price is $318,760. Add the performance package at $46,000, which is more than most Mustangs. Which is more than most Mustangs MSRP. Add $10,000 for some exposed carbon fiber, $1,500 for the red brake calipers, $3,700 for the gas guzzler tax, and you get $379,960 as tested, and then you have to add $5,500 for destination and delivery. A couple of things you need to know about a Mustang GTD. To acquire one of these, it is an application process, and every single one of these comes with a 2-year no-sell clause, and this is contractual. That clause does indeed come with some steep penalties, and allocation has so far favored Ford GT owners and people with large social media followings. So if you're wondering why you can't buy one, that's why. Now, in terms of speccing yours, assuming you're fortunate enough to be selected by Ford Racing to purchase one of these, I have some thoughts, and it starts with the magnesium wheels. The word is they save 40 pounds of unsprung weight and cost another $10,000, and that's $250 per pound saved. You could lose 40 pounds on your own, but that requires discipline, and the wheels just require a check mark on the order form. You also need to add the performance package because for a Mustang GTD, anything called a performance package is essential, so add $46,000 for that. After that, it's simply a matter of choosing your color, and after spending some time with this, livery aside, I don't think white is the best color for a Mustang GTD. You need to find a bold color and be happy with your color choice with your Mustang GTD. The GTD buying process operates on a completely different level than walking into a dealership. Once you secure a build slot, Ford assigns you a concierge who manages everything through delivery. Your car arrives via enclosed carrier to your location, where the concierge spends as much time as you need explaining every technical detail. The relationship continues after delivery with ongoing access for technical questions, track setup guidance, and exclusive driving experiences with professional coaching. This isn't anything new. Other manufacturers have done variations of this for years, but for Ford, it represents a fundamental shift in supporting an American-made supercar. Before we wrap up, let's have a look at what owners are saying, because a number of these are on the ground, like with our friend Jay Lasco at Lasco Ford, and owners have some feedback already with their experiences with their own Mustang GTDs. First, they say this drives nothing like a Mustang. Multiple owners with GT500s and other muscle cars say the GTD feels more like a mid-engine supercar. One compared it to the Ford GT and the Lamborghini Huracan Performante. And despite costing almost $400,000, owners are putting serious miles on these. One guy took delivery in July and immediately planned 8,000 miles of road trips. Plus, our friend Jay Lasco has put most of his miles on the racetrack. So the whole garage queen assumption is already wrong. Now on to the issues, which you should expect with a very focused car like this. Those Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2 tires aggressively throw rocks. This is no surprise. Ford recommends against driving on public roads during break-in, and owners are already documenting paint damage. And here's a catch. The factory paint needs 30 days to cure before you can wrap it. So either you garage your $385,000 Mustang GTD for a month or drive it properly like it was intended. Owners have also noted the interior. It's essentially identical to a base Mustang. Same dashboard, same infotainment, even the same cup holders. And at this price, multiple owners have called this out specifically. But here's one universally acknowledged win: the steering. Even skeptical owners admit now that Ford delivered this GTD GTD with exceptional steering feedback. Oh, and as you've seen, there's no trunk. Zero. That entire space is filled with suspension hardware, hydraulics, and cooling systems. You can see it through the polycarbonate window from the interior and if you take off the deck lid. The Bang & Olufsen sound system, well, it apparently uses the entire trunk cavity as a subwoofer enclosure. Owners say the bass is actually insane. So Ford deleted your cargo space but gave you a sound system that'll shake your fillings loose. And these are real insights from real people living with their Mustang GTDs, not a press loan and not a gracious loan from a friend like Jay Lasko at Lasko Ford. Real ownership, and I appreciate those owners' insights. And if you own one of these or have some serious wheel time, let me know in the comments below what I got wrong and maybe what I got right. I'd especially love to hear from Mustang GTD owners about their long-term ownership experiences with this amazing machine, because it means so much more than these short test drives that I'm able to enjoy. My verdict, well, the answer to that question about Ford building a better road car than the race car, well, that's not entirely the case, because this Mustang GTD was built for an entirely different mission than the GT3 race car. Racing regulations ban active aero, semi-active dampers, and forced induction for good reasons. They're expensive, they're complex, and they create performance disparities. Racing needs parity, road cars need adaptability. And I think what Ford understood is that using technologies that are banned in racing doesn't automatically offer an advantage. It's an opportunity to solve different problems. The active aero isn't there to find another 1/10 of a second on a hot lap. It's there so you can drive this to the track without scraping the front splitter, then lower at 40 millimeters and add massive downforce when you arrive. The semi-active suspension isn't about beating the GT3 car's passive dampers. It's about being compliant enough for public roads without compromising track mode stiffness. The supercharger isn't about outgunning naturally aspirated race engines. It's about making 815 horsepower with emissions compliance and reliability. The GTD doesn't prove that road cars can beat race cars. It proves something better, that when you remove racing's artificial constraints, you can build something that's actually more impressive because it has to work in the real world. And your $385,000 isn't buying a deregulated race car. It's actually buying the engineering freedom to not compromise. Like a lot of you, anytime this GTD has come up in conversation in the last few days, everybody's asking the same question. Is it better than a GT3 RS? And I think that's the wrong question. Is it more interesting? Absolutely. Will GT3 RS owners admit that? No. Will GTD owners care? Also, no. And the best part, everybody wins by not talking to each other at Cars and Coffee. And after today, every other Mustang is going to feel slow. Thanks, Ford, for ruining regular Mustangs for me. At the end of the day, Ford built this Mustang GTD to beat European supercars at their own game, and they succeeded unequivocally. Do owners of European supercars actually care? Well, spoiler, they don't, and that's okay, because this car isn't for them. That's the 2025 Ford Mustang GTD. Many thanks to our friend Jay Lasko at Lasko Ford in Fenton, Michigan. Subscribe if you want to see more reviews like this. Don't if you don't. Comments are open if you disagree. And if you want to support the channel, the merch store is open. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.